Here we go. The Fantasy Writer's Guide to World Building in Scrivener. A simple, effective approach to crafting an engaging world for your readers. So this is going to be a lot of fun. Let's dive right in. I know we had a couple new people, so let me just introduce myself. I'm Oliver Evanson. I'm a writer, an editor, and a Scrivener mentor, largely thanks to this amazing software. And for the better part of 15 years, I have used Scrivener to improve my writing and editing skills. And I'm eager to teach you these skills in my position as the outreach specialist for Literature Latte, the creators of Scrivener and Scapple. Now, I absolutely love connecting with other like-minded writers. If you would like to connect with me, please send me an email. You can see my email address right there, contact@ojevanson.com, or better yet, join my email list. I frequently send out valuable tips and techniques to help you become a better writer and Scrivener user. And all subscribers receive a free copy of my free starter novel template, which is only getting better and better thanks to feedback from writers like you. So thank you so much for that. Keep giving me that feedback. I thrive on it. I love it. Here we go. Oh, man. Can't breathe. Sorry, guys. Still getting over this cold. So let's talk about schedule, okay? Pretty basic. We're going to go through an introduction real quick. We'll have our training, okay? And that training is going to be broken up. I should put this in here into two parts. We're going to have kind of a world building training, and then we're going to have a Scrivener training, and we'll kind of try to mix those two together, but that's how it's going to go. Then we'll talk about some free resources I have available to you, our upcoming events for next webinar week, and a Q&A at the end. So if you have any questions you want to ask me or you want to see live together, hold on to those. We can get those at the end with our little time we have left over. Okay, now I've changed the format of all my webinars so far. I'm trying to be a little bit different, more unique, but as many of you know, I really want to be clear on the expectations of what I promise to teach you and what you should get out of this webinar today. I want to make sure I'm providing clear value to you, and then I'm going to check at the end to see if you feel like I delivered or not. So let's talk about what hopefully we can do today. Today, I want to teach you how to use my 7 world building tools to help you flesh out a rich and engaging world in Scrivener. We're going to go over those 7 tools today. I want to teach you how to leverage document templates to build your writer's toolbox and to expertly craft your world's environment. And this is something I'm really passionate about. So the idea of the writer's toolbox was introduced to me just like I remember one writer talking about the concept of it a long time ago. And I've taken this idea and I've built it into Scrivener, and I absolutely love it. I can't wait to share you all, talk about all about that. And last but not least, how we can track your world's elements with custom metadata to keep you organized and on top of your world building. Okay. Now I know we have some new people here, so if any of this feels like whoa, way over my head, I'll try to slow down and keep it really as simple as possible. And also be aware we have tons of other great free resources, the whole webinar library, and all sorts of great stuff if you're a beginner and this is new stuff. That's okay. Don't feel like you can't be here. This is still a good place for you to be. Now, you should leave today feeling like a better world builder and Scrivener user. That's my goal. So let's see if we can get you from where you are now, from those 2s and 3s to the 4s, 5s, 10s and above, right? Let's get you where you need to go. Okay, now a little word of caution before we proceed here. Now, this guide serves as a compass and not a definitive rule book. And I think that goes for most things in writing, right? We're not saying that you must do things this way or you will fail, right? Writing and world building hold infinite possibilities, and there isn't a singular correct approach. There's no one right way to world build or write a novel, right? So a lot of what I'm going to teach today will really be beneficial to those who are planners and outliners, and if you're an outliner or a plotter, right, you're going to love the upcoming advice. But remember that the allure of crafting a perfect world can lead to what the industry calls world building disease. Now, which I honestly believe is just really ultimately a dreadful form of procrastination. We're too afraid to get started. We want everything to be perfect before we actually get started writing the novel. Now, ironically, I actually have the opposite problem, and I always was hearing this from other fantasy writers. Oh, I don't get into world building disease. I actually kind of needed to give myself world building disease a little bit because I didn't spend nearly enough time on the world building. But that's neither here nor there. Wherever you line up in the spectrum, the key for most of us is to simply start writing. The tools ahead are yours to wield. Okay, place them in your writer's toolbox and apply them as you deem best. And that's the key thing here. My goal is to provide you with tools that you can use when you find them, when you find the appropriate place to use them, right? Not all these tools are going to be useful for everyone at all times, right? We just add them to our toolbox and then we pull them out when it's appropriate. Okay, well, let's dive right in. Now, my guide contains 7 key world building tools and on how to apply them in Scrivener. But while I deliver these tools in a kind of linear manner, they really are just tools that I've developed to help me build a fantasy world. So really, this presentation might have just been easily called the Fantasy Writer's Guide to Building Your Writer's Toolbox. This is a concept, like I said, I'm really passionate about, and it's really quite simple. The goal is to acquire useful tools so you can have them available while you're writing your novel. This approach allows for a lot of flexibility, which I'll tell you more about after we learn what these tools are. Are you ready? Let's get started. Okay. First off and foremost, tool number 1. It may seem pretty straightforward, but you should start by deciding which aspect of the world you want to explore first. Okay? When it comes to creating a believable and compelling universe, there are a few key elements you should keep in mind. First, decide what aspect of the world you want to explore first. This can be anything from the magical creatures that inhabit it to the different cultures and races that call it home. Once you have a general idea of what you want to focus on, you can start fleshing out the details. Now, you don't really need to know the whole world before you start writing a novel, and that's where, we get into that whole world building disease. You can do as little or as much world building as you want. Now, if you're a plotter, right, like some of us are, and you want to outline everything from start to finish, you want to have all these sheets of information, go for it. Do that. If you're a pantser who just wants a general idea, like I'm just going to write down some notes here, and then I'm just going to quickly just dive right in and start writing, that's okay too. For me, I think a lot of us are really more in the middle, right? Where we find ourselves, I call it a plotzer, where I'm kind of a plotter, I'm kind of a seat in my pants kind of person, and so I kind of do a little bit of both, right? But ultimately, if you're somebody who usually over outlines, I recommend the following. I recommend you set a timer and or deadline. I probably even a deadline. I set a deadline for my world building to help you avoid that dreaded world builder's disease that we often hear so much about. But if you're on the other end of the spectrum, that can still be useful. You can say, hey, I'm actually going to spend X amount of time working on my world. It doesn't have to be much. It could be an hour here, an hour there, right? Just remember, stay flexible. Change and evolution is going to be frequent in this phase of the world building process. And to a certain degree, your world will always kind of be shifting a little bit, right? So at the same time, don't be afraid to nail down some elements that will remain constant, but just keep that flexibility. We're in that brainstorming stage, right? Okay, so some things we can do. Actually, you know what? Yeah, I think we're good to move on. Let's go on to the next. So that's our tool number 1. Just get started. Oh, there we go. I knew I had one more. And so you might want to also think about what makes your world unique and interesting. What are some of the key features that make it stand out from others? This can be anything from a rich history to a unique geographical location. In order to world build successfully, you want your readers to feel as though they are entering a new realm that is distinct from any other story. Even though aspects of your world may have been done before, it's how you spin these elements to add freshness that can really make it stand out. There we go. So if you want to take down some of these questions, feel free to. Like I said, we're still recording, so you can access all this later. And I'll also have a little something at the end available for you. Okay, tool number 2. Establish rules and laws, okay, for the inhabitants and how inhabitants live in this world. This includes things like magic, governing systems, etc. Let's go ahead and click next. So once you have a few key elements in mind, you can start to flesh out your world. Begin by writing down everything you know about your world, no matter how small or insignificant it may seem at this time. Every detail matters when it comes to creating a believable and immersive world for your story. As you write, keep asking yourself questions about your world. What kind of people live there? What kind of government do they have? What are the major religions? How do people dress? What kind of technology do they have? The more questions you can answer, the more fleshed out your world will become. Now, I know if you're a pantser, this can be like, oh man, I don't want to fill out a worksheet and write all this information down. If that's not your jam, that's okay. Like I said, this is just tools. Store them, put them away. And as a pantser, this is how I find myself saying, oh, I've reached a point in my story where I want to know X, Y, Z. Like I want to know what there's a specific kind of technology they're using. I want to learn more about that. In which case I might pause for a second and just write a short little paragraph or page about what that technology is and how it works, right? So that's kind of how I approach that as if I'm a pantser. Like I said, I'm more of a plotzer, but anyway, it's okay. It's all good. Okay. Tool number 3, okay? Next, we want to consider tone and mood, the tone and mood your world was set in, okay? Is it a lighthearted or dark? Is it lighthearted or is it a dark and gritty fantasy novel? You know, wherever you're at, either way, you decide what that tone is. In fact, it's helpful if you can be clear cut on that from the get-go so you know exactly what kind of story you're going to tell. The tone of your story will actually really dictate the kind of world you create and the type of characters that inhabit it, right? So be sure to, when you're doing this, to include all the senses. What does it look like? What does it smell like? What kind of sounds can be heard there? And you can start from the upper level, from the whole world, all the way down to the smaller local level to, the city or place where your characters are inhabiting. That's up to you. The more sensory details you can include, the more your world will feel real to your readers and to you. Okay. Next, we're moving on, and you might notice I'm saying like 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 2, 3, 2, 4. The numbers is just to give us some structure here. Realistically, these tools can be used in any order. There's no like you must do tool 2 and then tool 3, right? It's not that linear. It's flexible. You can break it up how you like to. Describe the environment of your world, including weather, natural disasters, resources, land usage, etc., etc. So, the environment of your world can have a big impact to the lives of your inhabitants. In this case, look, we got kind of this in this picture here, that frozen kind of snowy world that who was it? Who was talking about it earlier? I can't remember. Gilberto, yes. So you see, I'm still thinking about snow, just not directly for me. Consider things like the climate, natural resources, land usage. All of these factors can affect the way people live and interact with their surroundings. So, for example, a world with harsh winters with limited resources would be very different from one with a temperate climate and an abundance of resources. The way people live in each of these worlds would be dictated by the environment. So it's important to consider this when creating your own. So you want to consider when it comes to weather, think about the different seasons and the kind of impact they have in your world. Does winter last for months on end? Does it always rain? Are there any kind of natural disasters that reoccur regularly? Any of these factors can help to make your film more real to your readers. Yeah. So hopefully you're seeing here, we're kind of building or filling our toolbox with a bunch of questions and ideas and tools we can use to kind of flesh out our world. Now, another big one is you might consider also what resources are abundant and scarce. This reminds me, recently I just watched Dune. I was actually even just talking with Alex just before we started today about the story Dune. I mean, a big part of that is the resource spice, right? This idea that Dune has all this spice and they want to take it so they can travel across the world, and it has significance both to the people who live on that planet and to the people who have invaded it and are using that to do interstellar travel. And so this, like I said, this can have a big impact on the economy and social structure of your world. One of the biggest ones is, so what type of resources should be abundant and that make their lives easier? On the other hand, what kind of resources are scarce and cause conflict that people are fighting over and they want it, right? How do some people live in harmony with nature, and how do other people exploit it? And I think Dune is actually an excellent example of scarcity and abundance, or mostly scarcity, done very well. Okay. And last but not least, let's see. What kind, I kind of tacked this one on, but what kind of creatures inhabit your world? That's also part of our environment. Think about that. This can include anything from animals, like animals that we know, chicken, dog, cat, etc., to mythical creatures that we create ourselves. Suffice to say, creatures are an important part of world building. They can help define the people who live in your world and how they interact with each other. So consider what those may be to help bring that world alive. Now, as a reminder, world building is this massive, massive thing that we do. There's a lot that goes into building an entire world. So make sure, especially if you're starting out and you're new to fantasy, right? It can be really overwhelming trying to create everything from scratch. So don't be afraid to borrow from our world. In fact, use as much as our world from I can. Gather those ideas together. Don't invent everything from scratch. That can be really tedious and really kind of a headache and almost basically impossible to do, right? Not an ideal thing to do. Okay. Next, another tool we have is defining our cultures, okay? Sorry. My nose decided it wanted to stop breathing. Okay. Define the cultures of your universe's inhabitants by giving them customs, celebrations, religions, or lack thereof, common languages, different languages. Culture is an important aspect of world building. It can help define the people who live in your world. Consider those customs and celebrations and things and how they can help contribute to the world. Now, not all these things are going to work together, right? You might want to focus more heavily on some things than others. It depends on what's important for your story. For example, if you're creating a fantasy world, you might want to consider what kind of magic system would be used there. What are the different schools of magic? What are the rules surrounding? What are the cultural rules surrounding using magic? Is it acceptable to use magic in public? Is it unacceptable to use magic in public? Can everyone do it? How do people use it every day in their lives? These are the kind of questions we want to ask, so we can learn more about that, right? Oh man. So consider the different cultures that exist in the world, how they interact with each other. Are there any major conflicts between them? What are those conflicts? Why are they having those conflicts? I could go back to our previous one about the environment related to resources and the abundance or lack thereof. What is the source of these conflicts? Is there anything that unites them or could eventually unite them, right? That could eventually bring them together. Consider the different religions that may exist in your world. What are their beliefs? How do these beliefs affect the way people live their lives? Okay. So these are all really, the real tool here is open-ended questions. Asking yourself powerful open-ended questions is going to help you really get to the meat of what your world is about. Okay. And a reminder again, you don't have to use all these tools. You just use the ones that are applicable or relevant to your story. Now, you might also want to consider what kinds of holidays and celebrations are present in your world. In fact, one of the books I just did, they have a whole big celebration at the very beginning of the story. That's kind of fun that we get into. Okay. Number 6, we got 2 more. Okay. And then we're going to get off into Scrivener, testing these things out, giving them a whirl, see how they go. So create a detailed history. Now, this can be anything from the formation of the worlds itself to major events that have shaped it over time to things that happened within the last few years of what you've written in your story thus far, right? So history is an excellent part of world building. It can help define the people who live in the world. Consider things like the formation. Okay, I already talked about that. Sorry, I'm reading my notes here. So, for example, you might consider the different wars that have been fought in your world and how they've affected its people. Different wars have been fought for different reasons. Some are for power, some are for resources, some are for ideologies. It's important to consider the different wars that have been fought in your world, or maybe lack thereof. Maybe there's a lot of peace. And how they've affected these people. What are the different political factions? If you're going into politics, what is the social hierarchy like? That's kind of back to our cultural thing. Consider the significant cultural events that have occurred in your world's history. Basically, think about the history that makes your world different and exciting. Okay, last but not least, and this is a big one for me. Okay, guys, I call it write what you like to read, right? And hopefully most of you have heard this before, but there are a lot of great works out there that can serve as inspiration for your own world building. And the main thing is that, we don't want to just like outright copy ideas from their sources. Instead, we want to use them as starting points and then put our own spins on them. This will help make your world feel both familiar but unique and fresh at the same time. And so this is really important. Like, if you want to write, a Brandon Sanderson type book, go for it. Write the book. Give it a try. Even if it just ends up being a practice novel where I just wanted to write about this book with sharp blades in it or something. I don't know. If that's an element of his story you really like, why not? Give it a whirl, see how it feels. Maybe you can find your own spin, and maybe you find your own way to do it. The important thing is just to do something that you love. Write something that you like. Some great works to consider are, one of my favorites by Brandon, actually, is one of his lesser known books is Warbreaker. I absolutely love that book. It has a really intriguing magic system where people have breath and they're able to give that breath and receive breath and make things come alive. And oh man, it's really, really cool. It's really, really cool stuff. I highly recommend you check that out. Then there's Magic Kingdom For Sale Sold. I don't know if you guys know this, but these are some of my favorite books, by the way. For Sale Sold by Terry Brooks. That's kind of a fun one where he starts out in our world, right? And then goes into this Magic Kingdom, just like totally different and exciting, and just it's kind of like, man, that could be me going into this. I bought a Magic Kingdom and now I've gone and I'm going to live there. How cool would that be? A lot of fun. Game of Thrones, that's kind of our dark and gritty fantasy. I absolutely love that. Really dark and foreboding. A lot of unexpected twists and turns and betrayals. Oh man, political intrigue. A lot of fun there. And The Amulet of Samarkand by Jonathan Stroud, which takes a really unique kind of villainous anti-hero here, Bartimaeus, as we go through with him. Even though he doesn't want to, he ends up doing a lot of good things. Excellent book, highly recommend it. These are I've taken elements of some of these books and kind of sprinkled them into my own world building, trying, because I find those things interesting and exciting and fun to write about. Okay, so find your way to put your own spin on these things and make them your own. Okay, so now that we've got those 7 tools kind of wrapped in your head, I know that was a lot to go through in one sitting. How do I go about building a world in Scrivener? Now, like I said, now because I'm part pantser and part outliner, I'm a plotzer, right? I build my world as I'm writing my novel. So I actually typically start out just jumping in by the seat of my pants and writing, and then I kind of build out. I don't wait till I'm done writing. I stop I don't wait till it's fully fleshed out to get started. I enjoy stopping and world building when the story calls for it and not the other way around. So there are a lot of pros and cons to this approach, but I love that Scrivener's flexibility allows me to do just that. I can just dive right in, I can start writing, and then I can stop and say, okay, wait. I want to look a little bit more at the resources here, and I want to spend some time, and I can create a little document for that and start filling in information about the resources, and I can jump back into the book and start writing again. But let's dive right in here. Let's see what we got here. So when a specific element of the world pops up in the novel, I'll stop writing and I'll retrieve the world building tool that is most applicable to what I'm working on. As a result, ironically, I often skip tool number 1, where I just start world building, because the story informs me personally which aspect of the world building I should complete first. I don't usually spend too much time with that. But that's not to say I couldn't. I could easily start with that and start with the world building. There's no right or wrong way to do this. You can start with world building. You can start with writing the story. You can start with creating your characters. You just choose a place and get started, right? So first off, I want to teach you how to build your Writer's Toolbox. Now, a lot of the Writer's Toolbox lives for me in the templates folder, because that's where I set up my tools so I can quickly access them to create anything I may need to create. So we'll set up our template folder. We'll look at the setting template. I have my own custom template that I've made, and we'll talk about adding and creating custom templates and tools, specifically those 7 world building tools that I mentioned today. We're going to add those into Scrivener and use them. Okay. Next, we're going to talk about organizing your world in the binder, how we can break it up. We can break it up into countries, cities, villages, castles, shops, streets, homes. We can organize by dates, by order of events. Organization is a critical part here. You want to be able to find the information you need when you need it. And that's one of the wonderful, powerful things about Scrivener. So we can keep things really organized in the binder. Excuse me. And we can search and find these things when we need them, right? Next, we're going to talk about tracking world elements using existing and custom metadata. How do we contract scene and chapter settings? How we can use keywords or labels to track settings. So we can talk about how to use custom metadata to assign settings to scenes, and also using keywords and collections. All great, powerful tools that we can use to manage the settings and the world of our story. And last but not least, we're going to look at adding visuals and details. How can, we talked a little bit about this, I think it was on Wednesday, where we added images to our corkboard. Well, we can add that. We can add images to our corkboard. We can use the synopsis. We can put them into the main editor itself, actually have them in there. We're going to look at how we might do that and how we might kind of get everything all together looking nice and complete and beautiful. Okay. Looking good. Now, before I jump out of here, I'm going to close this out. I'm going to look at the chat because I see there's been a comment here. I'm also going to look in the Q&A and see what we got. So far, no questions in the Q&A. That's fine. So, Julia, I'm going to look at your question real quick and see what we got here. It says, Julia says, I'd like to ask your opinion on how much world building do you think should be based on original thought, and how much you think it helps borrowing from world building on existing structures, such as using already established fantasy lore, such as wizards, vampires, etc. What do other authors tend to think tends to work well? My concern is that trying to design an entirely new and novel universe is too taxing for a reader to learn as they read, and they can get in the way of initial character development and plot. It's something I have no idea about and would love to hear other people's thoughts. And this is, thank you, Julia, for asking this question, because this is a good question that I think anyone who wants to jump on here is fine. Okay, we're all learning together. Actually, Julie, I agree with you to a very powerful extent here. Where my concern is that to design an entirely new and novel universe is too taxing for the reader to learn and read, and can get in the way of the initial character development and plot. I agree with that. Okay, when everything is new, and there's nothing familiar, it's really hard for a reader, and myself included, to connect with the story, right? And that's why, we've heard about info dumping, right? That's the biggest no-no, right? Where we just drop in information in chunks, and it's just like, boom, I'll admit there are some books I've read, even, by Sanderson, for example, where initially okay, this was a lot coming into it. He uses familiar elements, but he does have a lot of really unique and cool things. And when I initially started reading him, it was a lot for me to take in at first. Over time, I learned to adapt, and I got more familiar with this world. It didn't matter as much. And it also depends on how successful you are as an author, because you have to consider that as well. If you're not a well-known author, I hate to say it, but you're not going to have as much success, right, selling a brand new world without at least some familiar elements. Okay, but that's neither here nor there. I really think I think using existing folklore, established fantasy lore is a good idea, but it also can be a crutch too. And I think it all comes down to balance, right? Personally, I when I think about fantasy, most of us think of like dragons, elves, wizards, right? And then we include vampires, and there's a whole kind of another kind of fantasy realm. You can kind of break it up into different genres and subgenres. I think you have to find elements that are familiar that you like and you want to talk about. Now, personally, this is kind of a weird thing for me to admit, but I have specifically chosen myself not to write about like the typical like dwarves, elves, dragons in fantasy, because I feel like that topic for me it's just covered. It's covered so well by so many other authors, starting with Tolkien all the way up to now, that when I think about writing fantasy, I'm like, okay, I want to bring something newer, something more fresh and original. Not to say I can't ever use those elements. It's just that when I first start world building, those are the last things on my mind. Okay, sorry if you guys hear. Yeah, I'm literally just talking. So, sorry, Audrey. I'm literally just talking. So, yeah, it's literally the last thing on my mind. I'm not thinking too much about what do you call it? About those kind of things personally. I'm not thinking about adding in those elements. So I'm always looking, how can I take something that I'm familiar with and kind of twist it, turn it, make it different? And so I think that does start with starting with familiar elements and using things that already exist, right? And then kind of switching it around. Familiar yet unique. Such a hard, Ruth Ann, you're so right. You're so right. And so here's my advice to you guys. Don't get caught up in those details. I think the most important thing to do here is to find what you enjoy writing about, whatever that may be, whatever element, even if it's done before. I can't tell you how many times I've thought to myself, oh, this was done in Harry Potter. Oh, this was done in one of Sanderson's book. Oh, this was done by Tolkien, or whoever. It's been done. Chances are there's, as they say, their saying goes, there's nothing new under the sun. I don't know if I entirely believe with that. I think there are still some new ideas we could probably find and figure out, but as it stands, a lot of it has already been done. That's okay. Just find no one has done it like you, right? No one has done it like Oliver has done it. No one has done it like Ruth Ann has done it. No one has done it like Audrey has done it. No one has done it like Julie has done it. So you do it your way, and you might be surprised with what you come up with. Even if it's been kind of done before in some way, put your own spin on it, make it fun, give us a new story. That's what you got to do. Okay. Anyway, great question, Julia. Thank you for asking. I know that was a little bit long-winded answer. I will try to be more concise in the future. Francine, I see you have your hand raised. I don't know if that was on accident or purpose, but if you have a question, let me know. I'll do it. Oh, Gilberto, that's a great question. I'm going to answer that at the end. I will answer that question at the end. Let's dive right in here first, and then we'll jump into that. I'm going to move this over here. I'm going to stop sharing for a second. But that's a great question, Gilberto. Let me share my screen. Desktop, on desktop. There we go. Okay. Perfect. Okay, so we're going to open up Scrivener. And we're going to build our Writer's Toolbox. Now, for those of you who are, who are part of my email list, you all have probably access, most of you have access to this lovely starter novel template I've created. And that's usually where I'm going to start. But for those of you who don't have it, you can join my email list and get access to that. Happy to get you a copy of that. Or you can use one of these lovely, wonderful templates that are already included with Scrivener. Okay. The novel template is great. The novel with parts. In fact, this initial template was built off of the basis of these two templates, but it just goes a step further than what they offer. And I am continually improving it. So let's go ahead and start that. I'm going to go ahead and create it. And we're going to go with, I'm going to call this our world building. No problem. I don't know why that's not showing. Let me try again, guys. Thank you for letting me know. Can you see it now? Perfect. Okay, so we have our novel with parts. I do have this old NaNoWriMo one for when we do NaNoWriMo. We give that out every time we do Camp NaNoWriMo and every time we do NaNoWriMo in November. So if you want access to that, I think you can go to literatureandlatte.com/NaNoWriMo and find that there. It's not always available, so if it's not available right now, you might just have to hold off until that is available again. But like I said, I absolutely love my starter novel template. It kind of takes all that stuff out that we don't need, keeps the stuff that we do, and gets us rolling. So I'm going to go ahead and create that. World building. Now, ideally, we'd give it an actual name, but we're just going to call this world building assignment today. Why not? I didn't even spell assignment right. That's okay. As you know, the name of the project is really irrelevant. You can always compile it and change that title. I'll remind you, if you don't remember from our first webinar this week, we can do that right here. I can change the title to whatever I want it to be. Okay, let's make this big. Okay, let's see. I'm trying to remember where I stuck that. Oh, you know what? So, as you know, guys, I'm often updating this template, and I forgot. I haven't submitted this update yet, but it's coming. Okay, it's going to include all the tools that I've covered today. So bear with me while I pulled up the updated one. I thought I added it here, but I didn't. So Finder. Where are you, Finder? Okay, there it is. that one. It's great. Templates. Thanks for being patient with me, guys, while I pull this up. There it is. Okay. Here it is. Aha! There we go. Got my world building tools. And just to show you how easy it is for me to bring in from one project to another, these will be added to this template probably later next month. Okay, bear with me. I like to take my time and make sure they look really good before I just drop them in. Okay, so here we go. World building tools, all the ones I discussed. You can see there's a tool all the way down to tool. I even have a tool 8 here. This is the actual setting sketch to a little bit beyond. It's really easy to bring these over. Just gonna drag and drop it over like that. There we go. Okay, now we've got it in here. But this is pretty straightforward here, how we do this. You can see we have it in our template sheets. I might even come in here. I'll rename this the writer's toolbox, because that is my toolbox. Close it up, open it up here, and there we go. We have our tools right there. Tool 1, set a deadline, use a timer, get started, right? It's just meant to help you get your juices flowing, right? Get you going. Maybe set a deadline if you feel like it's a concern of yours, like I want to be done with this by a certain time, right? I have tool 2, tool 3, and these are going to expand. I know right now it's just a bunch of questions. I'm going to have instructions and all sorts of fun stuff added into this to help you get those juices flowing. But like I said, these are just tools to help us get us moving in the right direction, okay? And here's an actual setting sketch we could do. And you could evolve this sketch and take elements of these tools and drop them into the sketch. That would be no problems. In this case, we have our sensory details, we have related characters, seasons, eras, and additional descriptors we might consider, cultural norms, physical landmark, mood and atmosphere. You can see in this one, I've also added in a bunch of other comments and things you might consider when looking at the setting sketch. So this is a really handy tool to have and make use of. You can have the setting name, and you can approach this from any way you want. You can, if you're a plotter, you grab a setting sketch here like so. Let's come up to our settings here. I go ahead and right click here, or not right click, click it there. Come down here, there's my setting sketch, click it there, and boom, I'm ready to get started here. I can delete it, I can change the name to whatever I want it to be. Let me see if I can find my chat. You guys have any ideas for settings? Give me a setting name. Throw out some names for settings here, and I'll drop them in here. Okay, looking good. So we'll make a couple of these. I'm gonna add in here. Go here. I have a more generic one that was in here originally. I think this is actually the exact same one that's included with the regular template. I just changed the style here a little bit. Okay. Ooh. Thank you guys. Thank you. This is perfect. But we're gonna use this one. We're gonna actually delete this guy. And instead of just coming up here every time and recreating that, I'm actually gonna use the duplicate command, Command D, to duplicate these real fast. How many we got? We got the celestial realm. Okay. Got it. We have the Iron Dragon in. Okay, good. Got it. We have the Cursed Forest. Ooh, good. I like that. Okay. A Sinister World. Okay. Like so. We could come in here too. We could take these, right? And actually put them in here like so. Location. I remember doing that. We could come in here like this. Copy. So ideally, the location here, you might go like if New York, or not this, if San Francisco is in California, I might put like San Francisco and then California, or I might, if I'm looking in a specific neighborhood in San Francisco, I'm just trying to push it back a little bit. How we might look. This is the Cursed Forest, but the Cursed Forest is where exactly, that's what that location there is for. A Sinister World. Cool. Boom. Like so. Okay, looking good. So we've got our tools set up in there. Like I said, normally what I would do, okay, I'd be up here working on my chapter saying, okay, I'm running away, when suddenly I'm like, you know what? I actually kind of want to talk a little bit more about the culture. And so I might actually come here. I might come into I might even not come into settings. I might come into here and actually make a folder called World Building. Okay. Building. And I'll change the icon. You can add custom icons here. I don't think I have a world in here. I'm not going to do it today, but normally what I do is I go find a custom icon, a picture, an image that is a world, like a, and add that there. For now, we'll just use the same icon I used below the test tube there. Boom. And then I'll say, okay, I want to work on culture. Okay. And so I might start with that, and actually might even create a folder called culture and push this guy over in here. And then start answering these questions. And this thing might evolve and change, because maybe if I'm doing multiple cultures, I might want to actually duplicate this, right? And I might cut out things I don't need. I might change what I don't want. Like I said, this tool is still a work in progress. It probably will end up looking something more like this, right? Where I can actually change add the culture name, etc., and have specific details and questions and things I want to add in here. Hopefully these will all kind of turn into templates and tools like that. But for now, this is where I would start. I just start answering those questions, kind of figuring it out. So Cheryl's asking, do you keep your writer's toolbox for world building in a separate Scrivener file, or is it part of your file for your book? If it's a series, are all the books in one file? Good question. That's an excellent question, Cheryl. The answer is it depends. It depends on what your needs are and what you want. The truth is, what I do is I keep what is called a master writer's toolbox. So I'll have a project that, and this is, like I said, a very much large work in progress. I have a project where I kind of store all my tools and things, and then I bring those tools in piece by piece by piece into the project I'm working on. Now, in this case, I have found that I really enjoy working in series rather than just like manuscripts. Instead of one project being one book, I like one project being one series. That way I can keep as much of those elements all into one place. I also consider brevity, because that can get pretty massive, right? When you're working on a project of that a project of that magnitude with that many books in it, that can be a really massive undertaking for one project. There's going to be a lot of material to go through, right? But I still think it's worth it, because you can keep it all in one place. And then when I'm bringing things in, I'm making sure that I'm keeping things organized, I'm giving things clear names, and I'm deleting anything I don't need, storing it in my scraps folder down here, right? For later use if needed, right? So organization is key there. But yes, I do keep a master writer's toolbox, and I typically only bring in the tools that I'm bringing in. So not only do I work on fantasy novels, I write self-help books, I write short stories, I write blogs and articles. So each of those writing assignments requires different tools, and so I like having that master toolbox available where I can have all my tools in one place, easily accessible, and then bring in the tools I want to. Alternatively, if I didn't want to do it that way, I could just create a bunch of different templates, right, for a bunch of different things, right? Either way works. So there you go. That's how I do that. That was a great question, Cheryl. Hopefully that answers your question. So Rebecca's asking, this is a good question too. Do I have, and this is actually a question I don't have a great answer to yet. This is a problem that I have problems with too. Oops, let me copy that. I wish I had a good answer for you, Rebecca. Do you have an idea of how to come up with names for fantasy worlds? That's something that I am also trying to figure out as well. But thank you for bringing it up on my radar, and thank you, Matthew, for dropping it in there. I have used name generators. I'll have to try that one out, Matthew, but they've just never really worked for me. For like fantasy names. I enjoy, everyone knows we have this lovely name generator right here. It's not for settings, but we could add our own custom list in here and maybe make some settings if we wanted to. It's really ideal for, names of characters that we have available right here in Scrivener. But I've yet to find a really solid method that works really well. Gilberto is saying, combine names of weird places in the world. Yes, you certainly can. Oh, thank you, Carl. Behind the name has a cool name generator tool. Cool. Excellent. This is great. If you guys have great name generator tools, please, keep dropping them in the chat, because I also would like to know what tools you guys are using in that regard, because that is something that is actually, I'm putting it on my radar. I'm moving it to the top of my list now because that's something I've also been wondering about and been wanting to work on. I'll start doing some research. I'm going to look at all these name generators and things you send me, try to identify one that works best. And then hopefully I can also even come up with my own Scrivener-based tool that we can use in Scrivener to get, to make that happen. Whether that's actually using this name generator and importing setting names and things like that, or a methodology of some kind of how writers come up with really cool names. I know a lot of them do definitely use Google. They use a lot of languages, different languages and things like that, kind of mixing and maxing worlds. I've read articles on how some people do it, and it's kind of interesting. It's really cool. It's a really cool thing. So thank you. And Brianna says, and always Google the fantasy names you come up with just in case it means something unexpected in the existing language. Yes, that's a good point. I'll add to that too. Not only should you check to see what it means, right? You want it to mean something good. And ideally, we want our names to have actual literary value too, right? That meaning is. But also, we want to see if it's been used. And if it's been used a lot, right? If it's a very commonly used fantasy name, you might want to consider, and it turns out that's the name of your main character. I've had that happen a couple times where I'm like, oh, I got this really cool name. And I searched it up. It's like, oh, well, that has been used a lot. I guess I won't use that name. Not to say you can't, right? You can certainly add to it. Yeah. So yeah, look at that. See if it's been used before. See if it has a good meaning. The thing about name generators I don't like as much is that we tend to just find cool names and then we kind of forget about that. We forget about the meaning behind the name. And I think it's worth taking the time, maybe generating a bunch of names and then finding some, and then looking up those meanings, see if they really match the character. I don't know. I know we don't really do that in real life, but really, we should. A lot of times when I name my children, I thought to myself, I would look at the name like, okay, I hope my son or my daughter, becomes like, the meaning behind the name, right? And I sometimes remind them too, I named you this because of I probably shouldn't do that, but I do. I'm like, yes, remember I gave you this name because it's important and it has value. Anyway, it's fun. Okay, that was a great question, Brandon. Thank you so much. Yes, Gilberto, you're right. Joanna Penn takes that into consideration when she names her characters to help move the story forward as well. That's true. That's a good point. Let me see if I can find what we were looking at. So we set up our template folder. We got our setting sketch in there. We've added in our world building tools, and we can see how flexible and easy it is to go ahead and get this set up. We can look at as far as like structuring things. Let's look a little bit more into that. So we got the culture here. We're going to call this we're going to call this fantasy name generator. And if I figured out something good, it's going to probably join our toolbox here in the starter novel template. This thing is going to be legit by the time we're done, guys. The best part is, like I said, you don't have to use everything in here. You just pick the tools you want and you use them. If you don't, you can always customize it and make it your own. Okay. Yep. So let's talk about breaking it up. So we could break up the world building. Typically, I'll have for this specific series, it'll have its own thing. So we'll have cultures, right? And we'll have, let's do countries or nations. We'll call it nations, a little bit easier to spell. Nations or kingdoms. So let's do kingdoms. This is a fantasy novel, right, guys? Come on. Kingdoms and principalities. You can distinguish those how you want. I guess you could make multiple folders if it's a very distinguished different government between them, right? How they work. Cities. And let's add another one. Let's do, you know what? Why don't we do this in the corkboard? Yeah, let's do that. So I'm actually going to hide the binder and hide the inspector. And we're going to do this in the corkboard here. It's a little bit easier, I think. So we have cities, new folder. We're going to do villages. Okay. We have castles, I guess, And so how you organize this is going to be largely up to you. I'm going to do castles. That might be part of kingdoms. So, whoops. Forgot to leave that turned on. Let's actually go to settings. If you guys recall this from our our Wednesday webinar about on the corkboard. We're going to allow drop-ins on the corkboard. You can see how, if you know what the tool is in Scrivener too, you can easily turn it on and off when you need it. Right now I want it on, so I'm going to drop in castles in there. And we're going to put cities in there and villages in there. There we go. All in under kingdoms. Let's see. We could even get real specific with it. We could do streets, specific streets. You know, if we're looking at settings, right, where we're, you know, where things are happening, and even homes or buildings, houses, buildings. I don't know. However you want to do this. No wrong or right way to do this. It really, and just so you know, I might not actually come in here and create it just like this, where I'm building it out like this. Usually what I would do is when I have like a new setting, I'm like, okay, I'm doing, this is going to take place on this street, right? And then I'll come to streets and I'll create a street setting, talking about what that street is and kind of fleshing it out. Often, even after I've written the scene, I'll write the scene and I'm like, okay, let's pull out these elements, stick it into a useful template that I can then easily gather that information without having to read the whole scene again. Looking good. We could even go back and order things. We could talk about history, right? Let's do history. History. And we can come in here, double click that icon, and we can sort things by date. Date of, date occurred. Major event, name. I'm just kind of creating a template here, right? And I could even put into brackets here, date, right? Something like that. And I might actually convert this to a file, and then that would kind of be like a template kind of a thing. Duplicate that, Command D, Command D, Command D, Command D, and then I could just come up with a bunch of different major events, right, that occur in my specific thing. And I could make a bunch of them. I can move them around. You know, we could switch over to the freeboard corkboard mode here and kind of fiddle around with this however we want to. Since we're in the corkboard mode, why don't we drop in some images too while I'm thinking about it. Open corkboard. Okay. Where did I stick those guys? Okay, here's this one. Now I believe we actually need, oh, yep. This case I actually we're in the research folder, so I was able to actually just drag and drop that in. Bad thing about that is, oops, is that we need to get back to our binder, is that it was added as an actual file. There it is, right there, okay. Okay, like right there, boom. But really, I want this guy as part of the index card here. So I could actually drag and drop that right there. Oops. Got to change it over to image. Don't forget that. Like so. Okay. Now this is a major event, but we're actually going to change this guy. Where are we? This would actually be more of... Actually, no, this could be a major event. Maybe this is like a big battle or something. Why not? And we'll call this, guys, do you have a name for this major event here? If we go to back to our corkboard here, where is it? There it is. We're going to actually move this guy to images. I'll just put him in notes for now. Okay. Come back to our history here. There we go. Okay. So what major event might this be? This looks like some sort of like grand battle or something. I don't know. So you could actually come in here. Oops, let's undo that. See how sometimes when we're in this freeform cork mode, I don't like the drop in. It accidentally drops in things I don't want it to. So I'll come in here, uncheck that, maybe push it off to the side, and then I can now freely move these around without worrying about it if it's going to drop inside here. Okay. Let me see if I can find the chat. The battle ice howl path. Oh, okay. I like that. I like that. I'm going to take Matthew's. Sorry, his is just the first I saw, and it looks good. You could add in a date here when it occurred. About, we'll say 1132. I don't know. DR. I don't know. whatever sort of like time system you want to do. I don't even know what DR stands for. I'm just throwing it in there. So hopefully you get the picture here. We could come and do this and build out a bunch of things. Cool thing is we can click this right. We can switch it back to an index card. And we can start talking about what caused, or maybe let's do the battle, ice, how, pass, battle of the ice, how path is all about, etc. Right, and we just go on and on and on. Dragon region. I like that. Dragon region. I'll take it. We'll even put that in parentheses. Boom. So there we go. Okay. Pretty simple, pretty powerful, but very quickly we can get some things, some juices flowing, some ideas pulled out here. And you could start here. Like if you're a history person and you enjoy writing and creating history, why not start with your history? Why not get some images together, throw them on here, switch back and forth. Let that inspire you to create some new and cool things. And the best thing about this is that you can start drawing connections, right? Right here in the corkboard, we can kind of get some ideas together. Maybe one event led to another event, led to another event. One was kind of completely separate. You know, the goal here is to kind of build a visual, build a world, kind of see how all these elements link together, right? So pretty cool. Okay, looking good here. Now, let me see the Q&A here. Now, let me see. Let me look at my. We did some drop-ins. I could. Oh, that's the one thing I could do if I wanted it actually in the editor here. I could actually take the image right here and drop it in like so directly into the editor, which I may still want to do. I'm going to scale this down though, like that, right? And I like pushing things on the right. And so if I wanted to have this as part of my, what do you call it? Part of my history event, major event template or something, I could create a little template, right? Where I have an image and I have the stuff above and below what it's all about. Because Scrivener doesn't put text around the image, I probably would just center it up or push it off to the side or something like that. Okay, looking good. So we got the visuals and details. We talked about organizing the world. The only thing we haven't done is spend some time tracking world elements using custom metadata. So I think we'll move on to that. We'll talk about that, and then we'll jump into our Q&A with any questions we may have up in the end. And we're actually making pretty good time. I thought this was going to take me longer than it has, but actually it's flowed pretty well. I think it's been a pretty good presentation where things have been moving right along much better and much quicker than I expected. So I'm really happy to hear that. Let me just take a quick drink, real guys. I've been talking for a little over an hour now. 1 second. There we go. Looking good. So let's talk about tracking custom metadata into world elements. And I'd like to hear you guys. Is this something you guys have been doing? How many of you actually use custom metadata or even know what it is? I know we had some new people here who have no idea what that is all, who probably have no idea what that's all about. And to be perfectly frank, that's okay, because when I first started using Scrivener, the idea of custom metadata or even what is metadata was like over my head. I had no idea what it meant. It wasn't until probably about 5 years in, give or take, where I was like, oh, that's interesting. And once I figured out what it was and how to use it, oh my heavens, I loved it and didn't ever want to go back to not knowing. So Ruth Ann says, custom metadata is the best. I agree. Brianna says she has no idea. Daniela says, I do. Okay, great. So Brianna, I'm going to try to keep this really simple so it's not too bad. So for you, same thing for you, Lynn. I don't want you to be overwhelmed by this. And I want you to know right here and now that you don't have to use this tool to be successful with Scrivener, but if you can learn how to use it, it's a very powerful tool and it's very, very useful. So here we go. We're going to dive right in. So the metadata tool, okay, is found here in our inspector, right here in the center. This guy right here. Okay, we click that there. It'll open that up. And now we are going to make our inspector a little bit bigger so we can see. You can see right here, we have general metadata. We have custom metadata. Yes, thank you, Ruth Ann. I appreciate that. It will change your ability to organize. I agree. So general metadata kind of helps us understand what this metadata thing is all about. Like, what is it? First off, metadata is just information that describes your document, right? So in this case, we're looking at the Battle of Ice Howl Path 1132 DR, Dragon Regent, right? And we're looking at the general metadata. Okay, it was created today, March 22nd, 2024 at 12 p.m. And it was last modified or changed today at 12:06. If I come in here and make more changes, this will update. It's not instantaneous. It takes a minute, but it will change. Oh, there it goes. 12:09. Boom. I guess it is kind of instantaneous, but for me, it's a small lag there. Okay, so watch that. That'll let you know what's going on there. Now, whether it's including compile is here as well, you can uncheck or check that. It's worth noting, though, that if it's not in this folder right here, the series title or the manuscript or draft folder here, it's not going to get compiled. Okay, so just be aware that this one only relevant if it's actually inside of the manuscript folder there. Okay, so hopefully that helps you understand. We're describing information or putting information in about this document here, the Battle Ice Hound. And it could be this one here, it could be this guy right here, or it could be the character folder, it could be the Celestial Realm here. Whatever document we have selected, that's the information we're viewing. So in this case, we're looking at the Celestial Realm now, right? We're looking at when it was created, when it was last modified, right? So custom metadata allows us to describe more information about the document we have selected. And this is so powerful, okay? We open up this custom metadata section. There's nothing set up currently in this starter novel template yet because it is a starter novel template. It's not the end-all be-all yet, right? We set up the custom metadata here by clicking that button, and it takes us into our project settings where we can now set up 4 different types of custom metadata. And those 4 types include, let's go ahead and click our plus button. We're just going to call this metadata 1 for now. We have a text box, we have a checkbox, we have a list, and we have a date. And all these can serve different functions, okay? I like the text box because it's very flexible. You can put anything you want in there. I like the list because then you can, if you have a very clear list of things you want to add in there, then and you only want that thing assigned to that one thing, it's a great place to go with too. You can kind of set it up and just have it available to you. We have our checkbox as well, where we can just check if it's done or not done. And then we have a date. It's worth noting that I could just put a date into the text box here, but if you actually want to use a legit date is a great way to go. You can see here for each one, they have different elements. For the text, I can adjust it. The alignment is left, center, or right. I can wrap the text so it kind of stays all together rather than just like going on and on and on. I can use colored text if I want. For the checkbox, I can have it ticked by default or unticked, okay? For the list, this is where I actually add in my list items, okay, to my list. So like if we had here item 1, item 2, right? And likewise, I have date where I can come here and I can actually have any number of actual dates. I can even create my own custom date format if I wanted to. Now, typically for fantasy, I don't use the date function. I use, the text box. If I'm keeping track of like it was 1132 DR Dragon Regent, right? I would use a custom date for that, okay? To keep track of that. I mean, not custom. I would use the text box to keep track of that. But you don't necessarily have to use this for actual things like this. Usually for the date, what I use it for, let me show you. Come here, we'll add deadline. I'll use it to keep track of deadlines. So I'll come to the date here. I like the short date, okay? Maybe even I could add a time in there, right? Something like that. We'll leave like that, and that's how I keep track of that. We'll come back here. This one we're going to change to a list, and we're going to do frequent settings, or maybe frequent locations, however you want to look at that. Locations. And we'll come to a checkbox. The checkbox, I made a mistake here. List. Frequent locations. And so we have the Iron Dragon Inn. We have the Cursed Forest. The list is really useful if you have a very clear set of things you want to keep settings you are using. But if you find yourself deviating from the list at all, then I usually go ahead and switch over to the text box. Because remember, I can write anything into the text box. Danielle is saying point of view. So you use the list to keep track of point of views, or list for minor characters, for the list for the minor characters. Okay, that's a good idea. We'll come in here. Let's add in. Let's do that. Let's do point of views. Okay, I usually use point of views for my labels, so that's why you don't usually see me doing this here, but we could definitely do that. We add our point of view. We'll just do John Gradient Silver Long John long dad. I don't know. This is not working well. Long guy. I don't know, but you could have some. You could have some point of views here. This is where it would really be helpful if I had the name generator. I guess if I pulled it up and just grab something. But yeah, if you have a name generator, grab some names and throw those in there. Okay, let's just put those two for now. What was another one? A list for minor characters. I like that. So for minor characters, I have two ways of tracking minor characters, okay? I actually really like tracking minor characters with keywords. Okay, that's kind of my new thing I've been trying out, where I actually create a keyword for every minor character. Because the cool thing about keywords is I can assign as many keywords to as many documents as I want to. In a list, I can only assign one minor character at a time. Or if I do a list, oops, that's not what I meant to do. Let's delete that. We could come in here and I do minor characters, right? Minor characters, right? And I would use a text box, click OK. And you can see, okay, then I can type in all the minor characters that appear in a scene. So let's go over up here, scene template, right? So, minor character, I need some names, guys. Let's go to our writing tools name generator and let's just generate like 65 names right now. Copy those there. Drop them into our character folder here. Do text. This is things I actually do, guys. When I'm writing a novel generator, I'll actually do this. So I have some names to work with. Okay, so we have Samuel here is in this scene. And I'll separate with commas. Downside of this is it's not as searchable doing it this way. This is why I much prefer coming here, going to show project keywords. Okay, and what I'll do is create a keyword called minor characters. Okay, and then I'll add these guys in. So let me show you how this works. Copy, paste, and I'll actually nest it inside like this, so I can keep my keywords organized. You can see when I do this, it actually keeps them all there. And then the beauty of this is I can actually come up here. So these three characters were assigned to this specific scene. Yeah, right here, right? Instead of adding it here, I would actually select the scene that they're in and just drag it into their keywords section like so. So those two appear there. Kristen appears here. And of course, we have our point of view character is such and such person, either as a label or as a metadata there. And the beauty of all this is it's very, very searchable. We can easily find this stuff. We can also set a deadline, say this isn't done yet, but I'd like it done by tomorrow. I could even change this here, right? We could come back in here and say, hey, I actually want to have the date and the time here. Oh. Date and short time, okay? You can say, I actually want this done tomorrow by 12:30 p.m., right? That should be done by 12:30 p.m. tomorrow. And I can have that assigned to something. You can see when I switch over to different things, it changes, right? It's only this document that's applicable to. If I come up here and I go to search, okay? I can actually come here now and I could search for my keywords. So I can actually click my spyglass. You can see, oh, look, there's my minor characters. Remember, I had the minor characters there, but I'm actually using keywords, remember, because that's what I use for. And I want to look for Kirsten. There it is. There's Kirsten. And that's in the scene template there. If I want to look for, was it Samuel, right? Samuel. Oh, there's Samuel. He's in this he's included in this chapter. And you see how powerful and robust that will be? Anytime I create a new minor character and I assign a keyword to that character's keyword to a document or folder, I could easily track where that character appears in every single part of my novel. So as a plotter or a plotter, right? I want to keep track of these guys. I want to know what their arcs are. I want to know what they're doing. Maybe it's one and done. Maybe they get killed and they're one and done. Maybe this character is a recurring character that appears again and again and again and again. I think that's a better way to handle my manual characters. But yes, you can see there's a couple different ways we could approach that. Makes it a little bit more searchable, makes it work really well. I'm a big fan of that. But either way, keywords, custom metadata, these are powerful tools. Use them. We can assign locations, right? Let's say this chapter, it takes place. Let's switch to our outliner view here, okay? And we're gonna make this a little bit smaller. Actually, let's just turn off our inspector. And we switched, just so you know, guys, we switched to the outliner view. This is my favorite view for custom metadata, by the way. We come in and click this little corner box right here. And we come here. We want to include frequent locations, deadline, point of view, etc. And if I was using keywords to keep track of characters, boom, there's my keywords too. Voila. Haha. So I can kind of just substitute keywords and say, okay, my keywords in this case means these characters. Of course, you could use keywords for lots of different things, not just this, but I find this particularly useful. Okay, so we could come here and say, okay, this specific chapter, it takes place in the Cursed Forest, right? But while we're in the Cursed Forest, we happen to find also that the Iron Dragon Inn is also inside the Cursed Forest, right? And then we could have another setting, right? Maybe they both take place in the Iron Dragon Inn. I don't know, And so we could come out and you can see we can assign these specific things to these places, right? So this is the actual setting here, and I'm not sure I like frequent locations now that I'm looking at it from this view. I'd rather just this to be either locations or setting, however you want to look at it. Okay, we're going to change it over to setting. You can see the setting is the Iron Dragon Inn. And in Act 1, the setting is the Cursed Forest. They're in the Cursed Forest. Maybe they actually start out still in the Cursed Forest, and then they arrive in the Cursed Forest at the Iron Dragon Inn. Okay, so there you go. Hopefully that kind of gives you some ideas on how you can track these elements, right? Once again, if I have the Iron Dragon Inn, right, as the setting, I can come up here to my search here. I can search for settings, right? I can search for Iron Dragon, and boom, Iron Dragon is pulled up. I can search for Cursed Forest. Now, I am searching for the exact phrase, okay? You could do any word. You could do all words. I like exact phrase. Ideally, it'll search just for that exact phrase. If there are anything that's similar, it won't pull up the similar results. If you do all words or any word, you could get similar things that have those words inside of it, right? In this case, there's not a lot to search, so there we go. So super incredibly powerful tool, makes it really easy to keep your things organized together and working. If I really wanted to get really cool with it, I come up here, I'd make my collection, save search as collection. So every time that the Cursed Forest is searched, right, or I add it in, it'll show up here. So if I come here, I add a new chapter in. Let's go for it. Let's do it. Add a new chapter. We're going to call this The Rising Sun. Okay. And I went ahead and assigned this to, oops, where was it? Location here. Setting, Cursed Forest, right? And I came back to my collections here. Scroll up, there's the Cursed Forest collection. Boom. Everything that the Rising Sun hasn't been, in fact, added to this collection automatically by simply assigning that setting to it. So this way I could track settings and keep track of where things are going on. Maybe if I want to make sure that the whole story doesn't occur in one place, or I want to kind of vary it out, like, a lot of different applications here as to what you could do. Okay. Well, I think I'm going to wrap it up there. Okay, there's so much more we could talk about, I know, but we're going to go ahead and wrap it up there. I'm going to answer I'm going to open up for a Q&A as soon as we finish up the presentation, and then we'll get to that Q&A right away. Okay, so let me stop sharing for 1 second. Let's share desktop 3. Perfecto. Okay, I'm going to close that out. Close that out. And we will start up where we left off. Okay. Okay, guys, let's talk free resources. Oh, my notes are missing. Oh, well. So we have tons of great free resources available to you. Our free starter novel template that's available at my website. If you'd like to get access to that, please go to ojevanson.com/links. It'll be the first link at the top of that page. You can click that. It'll take you through that process, how to get signed up and get that template that you saw today. And for those of you, I know I said I'm mentioning I'll be updating that, adding in these world building elements into it. That's going to take some time, but even if you subscribe today, I send out regular updates to my email subscribers with updates to this template. So you'll be able to get access to the update when it's available for you, so you can use that. We also have our webinar library, our user forum, user manuals, blog video tutorials, and so much more available at literaturelottery.com and ojevanson.com/tools. So check those out. You're going to absolutely love it. We have tons of great content waiting for you to help you become the writer you want to become the author you want to become, and become the Scrivener master that you dream of being. Okay. So tell me, guys, did I deliver? Do you feel more confident in your world building abilities, particularly in Scrivener? Do you think you can use these tools? I hope so. I mean, I'm already excited myself to get to working. I have a novel I've been working on for a while. I started NaNoWriMo. I'm going to be using a lot of these tools to flesh out that world that I wrote. So perfect. Lynn, I'm so glad. Thank you I'm so glad you enjoyed it. That's great. Brianna says, this was great. Thanks for your detailed explanation. Happy to help out. Kitty, definitely. John, for sure. Gilberto said, absolutely delivered. Thank you. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate the support. I love to hear that. That makes me happy. Okay, well, more great stuff to come. We have one more webinar today, okay? One more. 4 practical ways or 4 practical tools to make Scrivener your distraction-free writing studio. And one of the most common things I hear about Scrivener is there's just too much. And I know even today we used a lot of those tools, but the beauty of Scrivener is that you can turn it into the tool that works for you. You can use the tools that are only applicable to you. You could use almost none of the tools and just write in the main editor, however you want to do it. Scrivener can make it possible. I honestly believe it's probably the writing software for writers out there. I've tried a lot of different softwares. I know everyone has an opinion on what they think is the best, but I've been using Scrivener for years and I just love it. And I honestly think it's the best one out there. Just saying. That's my personal opinion. But anyway, we'll talk more about that. That'll be here, I think, in about 30 minutes. So we better wrap this up quick and we'll finish that one. That one's a little bit shorter, so it won't be quite as long, but I'm excited for it. It's going to be a lot of fun as we dive into that. Okay. Now we are on to it, our Q&A. And any questions I can't get to that are Scrivener related, I highly recommend you reach out to our technical support team. They are waiting and willing to help you. If you have writing questions, okay, that go beyond Scrivener, or how you might apply those writing principles and things in Scrivener, I'm your go-to guy. Let me know what those questions. Send me an email. If you have feedback for the webinars, any ideas you want to see covered, also email me too. I should probably add my email to this page too. I forgot about that. At contact@ojevanson.com if you want to reach me directly. If you're looking for a general Scrivener query, you're having a problem with Scrivener, I do recommend you reach out directly to the technical support team. They can get you a lot quicker than I can. And they're there and waiting to answer those specific Scrivener related questions. So be sure to reach out to them. Okay. Let's open it up. I think we'll do about a 5-minute Q&A for any questions that may come up. So if you have a question for me you'd like me to answer right now, drop it in the Q&A. I see Gilberto's question there right now, so I'll go ahead and answer his. And then if we have any more after that, we'll just take it as it goes. So Gilberto is asking, what is your opinion of using AI to generate and design your world? Okay. So believe it or not, I actually think that using AI to build out our flesh world is not a bad idea. I don't think it's like the end all be all, because we got to remember how AI works. AI was built off of tons of data that was filtered into it, right? Data that we, the people of this world, created, right, and added, they added into it. Now, that doesn't mean it can't come up with some kind of interesting, unique, and original ways of forming that data. But in my experience of experimenting with AI to generate world building, it's kind of hit and miss. Okay, sometimes it comes up like, oh, that was a really cool idea, and I'll kind of work off that and build it. But one thing I'll caution you on is that it shouldn't be doing all the work, right? I use AI when I'm stuck. I'm like, okay, I'm not really sure what to do here. I'm not really sure what should come next. And AI can potentially offer potential pathways, not necessarily even solutions, potential solutions, right? And usually what I'll do is I'll construct something from the AI generated text into something that works for me, right? So a lot of people jump into AI thinking AI is going to solve all of our writing woes and our problems. And I know that there are also ethical concerns for some people as well, so really, it's going to be up to a writer on a writer by writer basis. But no, I don't think AI is the end all be all. I think it's a great tool we can utilize if we're stuck. So that's just my personal opinion. I might add that's my personal opinion. I think you can definitely use it. One thing I do like using it to create images. I'm very inspired by visuals. I'm not good at creating visuals, and I can't afford to pay someone every time I have an idea either, right? If I have like 10 different ideas, I can't afford to just pay an artist to draw me 10 different ideas. Unfortunately, it just can't do it. But I could come up with some ideas, have AI generate some ideas for me, like visuals for me, and then I can kind of build off of that, right? I wouldn't actually use it for like professional in the sense of like, I wouldn't like probably use an AI image to like for a cover or even for like art in the book. I probably would hire that out at that point, but I think it's a great starting point. It's a great brainstorming tool, a great building point. So I'll leave it at that. Yeah. Gilberto says, thank you, Oliver. I agree with to use it as inspiration or when stuck. Yes, the visuals are great. John says, use AI images for a storyboard with corkboard. Yeah, that's a great idea. I like that. Tony said, I need to leave, but I found this extremely helpful. Thank you. You're most welcome. So I know there's a big push for AI, and I'm really excited, guys. I am excited to see what AI can do. To me, it seems like each year and even each month, it seems like some new tool is coming out with AI. And it seems like, AI is getting better, which is cool. I don't think, to be honest, and this is maybe, some people may disagree with me on this. I don't think AI is ever going to fully replace us entirely. I think we have an important role to play in the creative process, right? But I think as writers, we should not be afraid of the tools we have available to us. Use the tools, use them appropriately, use them ethically, be smart about it. And in the end, I think it can save us time. That's always my goal. Like if I can get my novel done faster and better quality, I don't want just a novel done that's done faster. Like because if it's not good quality, it's not a good novel, right? I want to be able to write a better quality novel faster, and I think that's what AI can eventually enable us to do. Okay, well that looks good. Let me see if I think that was. Looks like that's the only question we had left. But I thank you so much, you guys, for your phenomenal feedback, for your excellent contributions. You are all amazing writers. And it just makes me so happy that I get to be a part of your author journey. Now, as a reminder, I'm going to go ahead and drop in my link in here for you guys. So if you're new, you were here, you didn't get, and you want to get access to that free starter novel template and any updates that come with that, go to ojevison.com, click that link at the top there, free starter novel template. Go ahead and sign up. You will not regret it. You're going to love being part of my email list. I send out lots of great advice, tools, and tips for writers and for Scrivener users. So I will see you guys here in about 30 minutes for our next webinar, and then I'll see you guys in a month for next Scrivener webinar week. Thank you so much, and let me stop sharing real quick, and I will see you all next time. See ya.